So I was out shopping the other day and I was in Smith's. I was looking at the games section. My wife was with me. She comes around the corner and she sees me looking at the games and she asks me, she just says, "Oh, have you not got a game to play at the moment?" And I stopped and I thought to myself, no, I've got plenty of games that I could be getting on with. In fact, I've got more games at home on my shelves than Smiths do here to sell me. However, I am in Smiths looking for more games, a perfectly valid question. And it got me thinking, there's quite a lot of videos at the moment on backlogs. People are always discussing their backlogs and the backlog problem. And just, I'm sure you've got a backlog if you're watching this. All video game collectors and players probably have one. It's just, they seem to vary, and when I watch these videos I can't quite get a judgment on how big some of these backlogs actually are. There's always the discussion on sort of dwindling them down and getting rid of them and experiencing the games, but I don't know how bad my backlog actually is in comparison, and I'm sure you may be curious yourself as to how bad your backlog is. So it got me thinking, it gave me an idea of a video where we can try and sort of measure, sort of get an idea of how bad some backlogs are. So I thought what we're going to do is I'm going to share with you my backlog. I'm just going to put it out there, show you my situation, and then we can use the comment section and you can share your situation and give us an idea of what backlogs are actually looking like at the minute. Is my backlog all right? Is it terrible? Who knows? I don't really know, but if I thought this would be a good idea to sort of get together, get a little way of measuring the backlogs and see whether your backlog's good or bad. So that was my idea. So I'm going to share with you 4 things. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to tell you my backlog number. So how many games are actually in my backlog. I've actually gone through all the shelves and counted my backlog, so I know how many games are in it. I don't know if it's good or bad, I'll tell you in a minute. Second thing, so a bit of fun, these are the ones. I'm going to tell you what's been in my backlog the longest game that's been there waiting to be played. I'm going to tell you the most recent game that I played to get it off the backlog. And a fun one, I'm going to tell you the most shameful game that I've got on there. The game that I don't really want to admit that I haven't played yet. So I thought that would be a bit of fun. So that's what we're going to do. But before I do, there's one thing I want to very quickly do, kind of need to do. I'm going to bring out this board again to remind me. What is a backlog? So there's a lot of people that mention backlog. I've watched a few videos on it, but nobody ever really tried to explain what a backlog is. So I'm going to have a go. So I hope I've got this right. Bear with me. I'm having a crack at it. So I think there's 4 things that define a backlog before we get going. First thing, you must own it. So in order for it to be in your backlog, it has to be sort of backed up. It has to be sitting there waiting to be played. Otherwise you could just sort of pick any game in the world, any one that comes in your head, think about it and go, oh, it's in the backlog. You got to own it. So for example, Nightmare Creatures 2. I didn't know Nightmare Creatures 2 was even a thing until very recently. I don't own it, but I really want to play it. But I don't own it, so therefore it's not in my backlog. If that makes sense. I'm sure that's quite an obvious one. Second one, not played it before. So as far as how I see it is, if it's in your backlog, you're waiting to experience it. So if you've played, so let's just say Fallout 3, I love Fallout 3, I'd love to play it again, but it's not really in my backlog because I've already played it and I've experienced it. But whereas maybe I've picked up a game, put it in the console for order 2-3 minutes, take a look and see what it's like. I thought, oh, that looks good. Took it out, I'll come back to that. That's fine. Or obviously, if you picked up the game and never ever took it out of the case. So you kind of played it before. Number 3, age means nothing. So it doesn't matter if you've got a copy of Mario 64 that's been sitting in a box for 25 years, you've never played it, or whether you've got Spider-Man 2 on PS5, you've had it for 2 weeks and you're just waiting for a day off work to put it in the console, still in the backlog. So age means nothing. And the 4th one, this is the important one, you must have intent to play it. So what I mean by that is when you got it, however you came about it, whether you purchased it, hunted it out in the wild, whatever have you, you are there ready to fully prepared to play it. And I've got an example of what I mean. So this is Medieval 2. I've never played Medieval 2. I played Medieval 1 when I was younger. I loved it. So I'm saving this one. Looking forward to play it. I think I'll get a bit nostalgia because I played Medieval 1. And yeah, just a game that I'm looking forward to having a go. Never played it before, so it's on the backlog. I intend on playing it. This is Rugrats Studio Tour. I didn't even know it. Not to be confused with Search for Reptar, which is an absolute banger of a game. This is Studio Tour. I didn't even know I owned this. I just looked along my shelf, saw this sitting there for this exact example. I won't probably ever play that. So it's not in the backlog. That's just in my collection. So that's in the collection. that's in the backlog. Does that make sense? I've got one more just to hammer home the point. This is Haunting Ground. I picked this up last year, paid a fair chunk of money for this one. I'm looking forward to playing it. I'm sort of saving it for, I played a lot of horror games recently, so I feel a bit burnt out on them. So I'm sort of saving this to get back in the mood, and I'm really looking forward to playing that, bought with complete intent of playing. And this is Street Dance. God knows where this came from. I have absolutely I don't even think I've ever seen this game before, but it's in my collection. So that's in the collection. That's in the backlog. Make sense? I think it does. I think you know what I mean. So basically what I'm saying is this isn't a question of how many games you have in your collection that you haven't played yet, because as far as I'm concerned, a backlog does not make. So there has to be intent. So that's it. Right then. So let's get started, shall we? Right. So I'm going to share with you my number. I've actually got this written down right. You ready? So my backlog number is 227. I don't know if that's good. I don't know if that's bad. I have no idea. That's the whole purpose of this video. I'm willing to bet it's worse than some, probably others that have far worse. I'm hoping some have far worse. 227. I won't go into a complete breakdown because I have literally counted them. Some interesting ones. I've got 70 PS2 games I'm waiting to play. Only 16 on the DS and 3DS. I've got 25 on the Wii. And my Wii U collection isn't very big. I was surprised at how little I've actually played when I sat down and looked. I've got 65 on the Xbox 360. That's quite a few. 20 Xbox One games and then a load of that. But yeah, 227 is my number. I don't know. Is that good? Is that bad? It's a little higher than I thought it was, but not as bad as I thought it was when I look at how many games I've actually got. But also by doing this, I've realised how many games are just in the collection, not on the backlog, that I'm not going to play. That became quite obvious to me while I was doing this. So something else for me to consider. But yeah, 227 is my backlog number. So there we go. So let's do this. So the game that's been on my backlog the longest is Final Fantasy VII. I'm sorry, I know there's a lot of Final Fantasy fans, and especially number 7 is very fondly thought of. I've mentioned before on the channel that I started collecting in 2016. PS1 was a lot cheaper back then. I picked this up for barely anything back then. I picked this up because I'd never played it, and obviously I've seen all the videos of people telling me how fantastic it was. So I picked this up, probably just the 4th or the 5th game that I picked up when I started collecting. Full intent of playing it. Bought it separately for the purpose. Never played it. I don't know why. I'm sorry. I know it's supposed to be. I think it's because I've seen too much about it that I feel like I have played it, because all the plot twists have been wrecked by this point. But I know it's a fantastic RPG, JRPG, I think it's called. Yeah, so I do apologise to all the Final Fantasy fans out there. I'm sure I've gone down in some people's expectations, but this has been in the backlog. So how long's this been in the backlog then? This has been, what, 7, nearly 8 years. This has been sitting there waiting to be played. So yeah, Final Fantasy VII has definitely been in my backlog the longest. As soon as I started looking down the shelves, I saw it and thought, oh, I remember buying that when my collection was just 6 or 7 games big. So that has to be there because the other games I played. So that has been in the backlog the longest for me. This is nice. Nice to say this. The one that I've took off most recently, and when I say most recently, I haven't quite finished it. This game's got 3 chapters. Each chapter's got about 5 levels in it, 5 to 8 levels, somewhere around there. And I think I'm on like level 6 of the final chapter. So probably by the time this goes out in the next day or two, I'll have completed this. I'm going to play this tonight. Stop rabbiting. Max Payne on the PS2. Great game. The story is fantastic. It's not held up brilliantly. There's some dream sequence levels on there which are just absolutely infuriating. But it's good. It still holds up. The story keeps it together. I could suggest go play it. It does hold up. I have enjoyed it. It's a lot harder, as a lot of you will know. Games back in the day were a lot harder than they are now, so it has took me a little while to get to the end of it. But Max Payne on the PS2, very happy to be taking this off the backlog. I first started playing this when it first came out in 2001. Me and my mate sat down and played it. We didn't get anywhere near past the first chapter, a couple levels in. So that was 2021. This is now 23 years it's took me to complete Max Payne. It's not the longest in the backlog, because I've only had this game in my collection for about 4 years, so that's been around longest. But took me about 23 years to complete Max Payne, so it's not that hard. I just I never got around to it, but feels great to get that one off the backlog list. So that number will go down to 226 soon, but 227. And now the fun one. So I feel bad for doing this, but I have to admit, the most shameful game that I've got on my backlog, when I ran down looking at them all, this one stood out as, I felt bad when I counted it because I've had it for a while now and I'm really into the genre and just want to play it, but I never have. Silent Hill 3. Oh, I know. I consider myself a Silent Hill fan. I've played Silent Hill. Silent Hill 1 is what first got me back into collecting. Silent Hill 2 is a fantastic game. For some reason, I've played Silent Hill 4. I've done Shattered Memories. I've done Downpour. I've done that god-awful one on the Vita, that book one. I just never got round to playing Silent Hill 3. I don't know why. I got this at the same time as Silent Hill 2, and I think what it is I did Silent Hill 2 and I felt a bit burnt out on it, so I sort of skipped this one, and then I picked up Silent Hill 4 separately, and because I was happy to get it, I played that one, and this one just sort of got missed out. I know it's supposed to be a fantastic game. I think most people, I can't say too much because I've never played it, but I know most people think that this one's very close to Silent Hill 2 in regards to which is the best game in the series. But Silent Hill 3, I have to admit, it's in my backlog, and it has been for quite a while now. I feel bad for saying it because I love my horror games. I'm into my PS2 at the minute. I've played games that have been released after it. But Silent Hill 3, yeah, I feel bad for saying it, but I need to crack on and give this a go now. It's been in there too long, and as soon as I saw it, I thought, oh my word, I still haven't played that. That's bad. I feel worse about not playing this than I do, say, Final Fantasy 7, because this is something I'm really into. This is what I like to spend my money on and enjoy gaming. So to not have played a horror retro game it feels bad to me, but feels good to get it off my chest. Feels good to share. So that is my backlog situation. So I have shared with you my backlog number of 227, and if now what I'd like to see is, how bad is that? Is that good? Is that bad? If we can compare, we'll know. So if we can use the comment section. So for me, let's just, if you try and keep the comment as precise as possible so people can read it and see it. So if we just have your backlog number, if you can count it per, exactly, fantastic. If not, the best educated guess you've got is fantastic, but if you can count it, brilliant. So your number, the game that you've had in your backlog the longest next, then the one you've recently took off, and then if you'd be so kind to share the one that you're quite shameful to still have in that backlog, that would be fantastic. But yeah, I thought this would be a good way of trying to compare backlogs and just to try and figure out how bad my backlog is compared to your backlog. And if I suddenly realise how bad mine is, it might be a time to sort of slow down on the picking the games up and work on that backlog. They're getting more and more expensive, getting harder to find, and maybe I've just got to sit down and enjoy what I've got. But let's compare, shall we? Let's see let's see the situation we're all in. Thank you very, very, very much for watching. Take care of yourself, guys.